All right, thank you, Jenna. Hey, everyone. Very glad to be here and present a little bit about kind of what I've been working with throughout these past couple years with my degree, particularly last year. And so, as you guys, most of you probably pretty familiar with the sea lion human conflict in Point La Jolla, California. This has been an ongoing conflict for really, honestly, as long as I can remember. And when I started my degree program, I did choose human wildlife conflict, particularly this human sea lion conflict, as really as my master plan for the majority of my degree. A little bit in these slides today, I'm gonna kind of delve into what this conflict looks like in La Jolla. Are posted warning signs effective in reducing human encroachment? This was a original research study I did last year with the help of the Seal Society of San Diego about the current posted warning signs there, and then just the future for sea lions in Point La Jolla. So to give you guys kind of a brief overview of the area, I don't have like an aerial shot right now of Point La Jolla, but it's a small peninsula, and there's a boardwalk that runs along the rocky bluffs where down on the coast where the sea lions will congregate, and that's pretty much a year-round rookery for them. It's really only separated by a very short wall, and there's even a staircase at the end of that. So we end up with a lot of scenes like this. On the right-hand side, right here, that's a particularly busy day of a lot of visitors and tourists trying to get an up-close look at those sea lions. Here up in the top left is actually that staircase at the end of the boardwalk that leads down to that rookery. You can see there is a posted warning sign here. Doesn't necessarily do much to stop human traffic down there. And I'm sorry, this picture right here is quite grainy and blurry, but I don't know if you can see. It's a screenshot from a video that was zoomed in from a long ways away. But there's a female sea lion right here, and there's a man holding a selfie stick. He was actually waving this over the head of the sea lion in order to wake her up for a picture. So this is just kind of a daily scene of what happens down here and what has been occurring. Easy access points such as the low wall along the boardwalk and a staircase at the end lead to crowds of people seeking a closer look at the sea lions. I've personally witnessed petting of adults and pups, waking up resting sea lions for photos, interruption of nursing, blocking path and or reducing use of space for the sea lions, and even an incident of kicking the animals. And there is a lot more that happens, but this is just a few things that I've witnessed in this particular conflict scenario. Try to go to the next slide. There we go. All right, so in June of last year, June of 2021 to November of 2021, I conducted a study really looking at the efficacy of posted warning signs. Now, I received a lot of help from the Seal Society of San Diego, and honestly, big shout out to them. I really wouldn't be able to have done this without their help. But they had gotten word in June of last year that in the coming weeks, the city officials of San Diego were hoping to increase the warning signs in Point La Jolla. So we thought it would be a great idea to try to start collecting some data on the efficacy of those warning signs, but we really wanted to collect some comparative data. So before and after those warning signs went up. Historically in Point La Jolla, there's always been about 2 signs, and they're actually where these blue markers are. There's this one on the left is a educational warning sign that stands on the wall. Really, it mainly talks about the natural history of sea lions, and at the bottom, there's a little bit on the rules and the guidelines about asking people to stay away at a distance. And then over on the staircase, as you guys saw in the previous slide, there is a warning sign warning people not to get close to the sea lions. So for this study, and actually this is the boardwalk right here, and then down here, here's the rocky bluffs where the sea lions tend to congregate. For this study, I actually utilized the help of a couple of volunteers from the Seal Society with data collection. We started in June before those additional warning signs went up. What we would do is we would place ourselves kind of in the middle here where we have a good vantage point of this area. And we would do timed interval counts every 10 minutes during a 1-hour observational session. And what we would do is count all of the people in this study area and then separate the people that were down close to the sea lions beyond the wall, and then those along the boardwalk. We actually ended up getting an equal amount of observations in June of 2021, and then in July they added those additional warning signs, and then throughout from July to November we collected another equal amount of comparative data. And you might be wondering, July to November was kind of a longer stretch than just that time in June. It is worth noting that in mid-August to mid-September of last year, there was actually an emergency closure of this rookery. So we did not collect any data at that time. We resumed when the emergency closure was lifted. But then come the fall time, that's really kind of moving out of the peak tourist season. So there were not quite as many people down there. And then for some supplemental data, I also observed human sea lion behavior for harassment incidents between the interval counts. And now this data was really supplemental for my university program. I can't really share the data right now. I actually had worked with a local marine biologist, and I used her methodology for observing those harassment incidents, and we signed an NDA. So I don't have that with me today, but next slide. This is just a quick visual of the warning signs added by the city of San Diego. So there was some stenciled signs along the wall and the boardwalk. Most of them said, "Do not approach mothers or pups." There were also a few, I don't have pictures of them, but it just said, "Do not approach sea lions." And then to the left here, there were a couple of A-frame warning signs actually placed beyond the wall, close to the rookery. And these A-frame warning signs had a little bit more information on them regarding the MMPA guidelines. And as you can see, no selfies with sea lions here. So the results of this study, a total of, between June and November, total of 6,956 people were observed. So in June alone, actually 4,902 people were observed before that additional warning signs went into place. About 58.3% of those individuals counted were along the boardwalk, safe distance away from the sea lions, whereas 41.7% of individuals counted were on the rocks close to sea lions. So a fairly even spread. And then when jumping into the results from July to November, after those additional, the A-frame and the stenciled warning signs were put into place, 62.3% of individuals counted were along the boardwalk versus 37.7 individuals counted on the rocks close to the sea lions. Now that's only a 4% reduction in the number of people coming within close contact of sea lions. So really not a significant difference. And that was kind of our hypothesis, is that these added warning signs weren't going to be enough to reduce human traffic and encroachment on the animals. Really interesting, that A-frame warning sign you saw in the last frame, it tended to migrate. I did not touch it. I did not want to manipulate any of the data collection, but I don't know if it was a ranger or maybe a lifeguard, but there were times in that A-frame warning sign, when I would collect data, I would just log down wherever that was, wherever the sign was, and isolating the times that that A-frame warning sign actually was at the top of that stairwell that we saw on that second slide. That produced very interesting results, whereas 700 individuals in that time were counted, 98% of them stayed along the boardwalk. There was very, very few people that were counted on the rocks close to sea lions. And it's pretty easy to understand, as that A-frame warning sign really blocks physical access. So not exactly rocket science, but moving on from that study, now what happens now for the future of sea lions in Point La Jolla? So what did happen as a result of this study was, in April of earlier this year, the California Coastal Commission held an agenda item meeting for their coastal development permit. The agenda item was a request for an area closure for the 2022 pupping season. Data from my study, as well as substantial data and information provided by the Seal Society of San Diego, led the Coastal Commission to agree to a seasonal closure of the rookery for pupping season in 2022 from May 1st to October 31st. The boardwalk remained open. However, access beyond the wall and the staircase were not permitted. Viewers still had ample view of the sea lions from the safety of the boardwalk. And this is just an example of one of the few signs posted along that boardwalk that has kept people out of that area, including a few physical barriers right here. And suggestions for future strategies aimed at mitigating this human-wildlife conflict issue. So this is a persistent issue, and it doesn't end here. This was a really huge success in getting that approved seasonal closure. But as we move into the future, I suggest community-centered conservation, such as further assessment of public perception on sea lion viewing and public perception on additional protections for the wildlife, public awareness campaigns designed at fostering environmental stewardship and wildlife coexistence, continued rookery closures during pupping season, preferably year-round, greater enforcement of MMPA rules and guidelines for wildlife viewing, consistent development of respect for nature, and safe wildlife viewing habits and guidelines at the community and the political level. And I think that wraps up my slides and presentation that I have.
Really great stuff, Ben. Predictably, we have a lot of conversation and questions. If anyone wants to raise their hand too, and if you want to ask verbally, ask your question for Ben. And while we're waiting for those, Kara's going to address some of these. We're going to have to forward to you, Ben, separately.
Of course.
But, and we've got a few hands up as well. Let's start with the hands up. While you do that, I'll read Wendy's. Do the sea lions get violent or aggressive when people approach the pups? Are there any incidents of people being bitten or hurt? That came early in your talk. So.
Okay. Since I've been working on this, I have not heard or seen of a bite or particular contact made. I have witnessed sea lions barking, and actually even a couple of them charging at people. Not always due to getting close to the pups. Actually, in fact, there was a video you guys probably have seen that went viral a couple of months ago of down in La Jolla of a male sea lion actually charging at visitors on the beach. And that area is actually really, really close to Point La Jolla, to my study site. It's really just around the corner at a very popular kind of beach cove area that people will swim. But I have not heard of bites happening. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if they have happened in the past, but since I've been working on it, I have not observed that.
Wendy, that was your question. Do you want to follow up, or did he answer that?
He did answer that. And actually, Carol from the Seal Society had messaged me directly saying that it rarely happens. But okay. I did have another question that's relevant to what we do in Laguna is, are there actually laws that people are breaking? Could there be any enforcement by marine safety when they're down there that close to the seals? Could they be ticketed or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. There are laws revolving around that. And it's actually under the MMPA guidelines. I'm not quite sure how the law actually works for that, but there are very specific guidelines under the MMPA for staying 150 feet away from sea lions on the beach, as well as specific level A and level B harassment outlines or descriptions of harassment. And I can actually try to pull up some of that. I don't have it on me right now, but I could actually send some of that into the chat later on throughout the presentation.
But they're more guidelines, right? Because our marine protection officers have told us that they can't really enforce it because it's more of a guideline. It's not an actual, you know, thing that they can.
Yes, it's very muddy. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Robin, you have a question, you have your hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, yes, thank you, Ben. I'm with the Sierra Club Seal Society as well, and I was just going to offer any answers to any questions, although I did have one to Ben and the group is, as you saw that he showed that we have a sea lion rookery right in the middle of La Jolla, and we get visitors of up to about 300 per hour coming to see the sea lions and trying to educate, you know, one group, and then 20 minutes later another group comes. It's endless, and we don't have enough docents. And right now the sea lion rookery just reopened this week, and as Wendy was saying, we don't have any municipal codes that the rangers can enforce, so their hands are tied. So people just go down and bother the sea lions. And we're just wondering if anybody, you know, has any other suggestions of what can be done. We obviously are very upset about how the city's handling it, and we're dealing with the Coastal Commission. But you know, what else has worked, because we're just a few people.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, this issue is really multi-tiered. It's really complex, and it's hard to condense everything to just like 15 minutes. So thank you for the added information and all that. And it's an ongoing problem, and we're making slow progress. We're making baby steps.
Yeah, and I would just throw it out there that this kind of query and discussion is exactly what we're really here to work on. And I can say from at least a sea otter perspective that I don't have the solution either, but right. I do think, Robin, that you pointed out something that's really important, and that's that human resources, that one-on-one peer-to-peer connection is really what we've found to be the most effective, and it's valuable and rare. So if I could have a volunteer out at the launch point for kayaks 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, it would really help. But it's so hard to be able to find volunteers, let alone have a paid person do that. So we just have time. I'm going to take 2 more questions. Carol's been waiting a little bit. Carol, you have your hand raised.
Hi. I'm on my phone, so I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I can put my video on. Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm also from the Sierra Club Seal Society. So I work with Robin, who is actually our chair. So I think one of the issues, I couldn't agree more with you, Gina, that education is super important. And when we have the people there who can educate, it works, you know, amazingly well. People don't want to willingly hurt these animals. However, I think, you know, the issue that we have is La Jolla is an incredibly touristy area, and there comes a point where, you know, we really feel, unfortunately, people are used to not being able to be shown what they can and cannot do. And they're used to barriers. Unfortunately, the signs, as Ben sees, and we've done studies afterwards, you know, it just doesn't have the effect, especially when you've got hundreds and hundreds of people who are not necessarily going to a nature reserve where they may be more conscious of this. This is just a very urban environment as well, you know, which makes it even more difficult. People are just wandering on. People are wandering around during the evening and the nighttime after the bars close. And then they go down and they go, let's go and play with the sea lions. So it's really, really difficult. And I think our view very much is that you get to the point where there is a limit to how much you can educate and how much you can have signs. There has to be some protection of our coastal areas. It borders the marine protected area, so there's a lot of wildlife, and it is really just being trampled upon. There was a good question in the chat about the stairs. Why on earth do you have stairs? There are also gates that are all along that coastline, allowing people to walk down, make unpermitted paths, trample the vegetation. It's, there comes a limit with too much increased tourism in some areas where we're arguing you need closure, you need some barriers. So it's very difficult, but if you go, and then just to add on to that very briefly, when you talk about barriers, there can be some pushback from the community. So, some of the community are not frankly keen on having seals and sea lions in the area at all. Some of them, they're smelly and they're noisy, and actually they're leading to this increased tourism that we don't really want in our. So, it's a very tricky situation, and I think any ideas, would we welcome. Any research like Ben's is crucially important. But any input and any research is really what we need. Thank you.
So I'm letting us run a little bit late because I want to just stay with this discussion for a couple more minutes. One thing I will mention is it might be a great idea for us to organize a working group that can get together after this meeting and talk more about solutions.